Welcome back. We are live here in the Mojo Dojo. It's Diamond David McBee, the weatherman Mike Hemme, and the one and only Joey Football. But we're not here to talk football. We just spent, probably 40 minutes talking about the NFL and the NCAA. We're going to talk about America's pastime, and we're talking about Major League Baseball. We are coming down the stretch, and what an outstanding 2016 Major League Baseball season we've had. And to me, the story of the 2016 season is the Chicago Cubs, your Central Division champions last night, guys. What do you think, Mike? The Cubs, is this the year they finally make it to the World Series and win the World Series?
Well, Dave, I hope not. Just because I'm tired of hearing about them. I am so sick of the bandwagon fans. I've got this thing about bandwagon fans. I just can't stand bandwagon fans. And so I've seen so many people jump on the Cubs bandwagon. And yes, they're a great team, all right? And that's obvious by the record. They've clinched in their 146th game. They clinched their division, which in the last, I believe it's 50 years, there are only 5 other teams to have clinched by the 146th game. And only one of those teams, the 1998 Yankees, went on to win the World Series. And I'm kind of hoping that that's the way it continues. Anything can happen in a 5 or 7 game series. So they're going to have to get through the Mets, the Dodgers, one of those teams along the way. Joey?
Mike, you were talking about the people jumping on the bandwagon here, but the Chicago Cubs. This is a team that's one of the oldest ballparks out there, an old team, and we got to be honest, just not very exciting for many years. So I'm kind of excited for the Cub fans, for those who stuck it and hung it out, because now they're finally getting a chance the last 2 years to see the Cubs finally step it up a little bit. And speaking of fans, I got to bring this up. I know the Cubs clinched it by a loss from the St. Louis Cardinals, and I know your lovely wife is a big fan of the Cardinals. That had to be. I'm sure she was very disappointed and let down. But there's a team of just the opposite of the Cubs, a team that for years now has made it or been right there, been an exciting team to watch. So there's a fan base that's excited and pumped, and now we got a sleeping team. I'm going to call them a sleeping team that's finally starting to wake up after last year's season and coming in this year, and it's got to be exciting for those teams. And again, one of the oldest ballparks is a park that I just loved watching when I was a kid, watching it on TBS and seeing Wrigley Field. I've always dreamed of getting to go there and see it. So
Harry.
With Harry.
I grew up too on the Cubs as like WGN. I'd always watch
WGN,
Steve Stone and
Harry
Carey, and you had Leon Durham at first base and Rhino at second, Sean Dunston at third. I think Keith Moreland at third, and Sean Dunston at short,
and Jody Davis behind
the plate, and then you had the Hawk, Andre Dawson, hitting 49 home runs in 1987. But, despite those great players, never got over the hump, never gelled together. But the Cubs this year, and I think it all starts with the general manager of that team. When you have Epstein bring in and build up the team the way he has, and then Joe Madden, you have to talk about the job that he's done this year as manager. The Cubs they've just ran wire to wire. But, like you said, it's all about what happens in the playoffs. We know there's a lot of teams. I think back to the Seattle Mariners, the year they set the record for most wins in the season. They didn't win a World Series. The Cub fans, I would love every team to get a chance to win. Like when the Royals a couple of years ago won for the first time since 1985, it was great to see teams that had struggled for a long time get a chance to win. But I agree with you. A lot of bandwagon fans that they're not cheering them, every other year. Now all of a sudden they're big diehard fans, but for the diehard Cub fans, I'm excited for them, and I think it's going to be a great postseason come up, and I'd love to see them make a run in the playoffs.
And that's why I said that. I'm with Mike on the fans that jump in when things are great, but those fans that stuck it out for all this time, I'm excited for them.
And see, I'm a Pittsburgh Pirate fan. I haven't won a World Series since 1979 we've had a couple decent years the last few years in the playoffs, but it's hard when your team has not been competitive for a long time, and it's great to see them finally winning something.
Atlanta Braves. I'm an Atlanta Braves fan.
You won 14 championships.
Yeah, you guys made it to the playoffs like 14 times, 14 years in a row.
They keep choking when they get there.
They got one World Series out of it.
One World Series out of it.
You're talking 100 years. It's a little different. I mean,
I always thought watching the futility of the Cubs and feeling sorry for their fans. I always thought I'd be happy whenever they did get to this point, but I'm not. And it's not them; it's the fans. And they've got a great starting staff, and the bullpen might be a problem for them when they get into the playoffs, but they have one of probably the best starting pitching in the league. Jake Arrieta, he's not even their best pitcher. The Cy Young Award winner from last year. Kyle Hendricks, he is the best pitcher. Almost took a no-hitter, almost no-hit the Cardinals a few days ago. Speaking of no-hitters and perfect games.
Speaking of no-hitters,
we had my team, the Dodgers, and Rich Hill, who the Dodgers got in a trade from Oakland, and it took 3 weeks before he got a start because he's got this blister problem on his hand, and they've had to sort of baby him through the season. The other day he gave up a couple runs. They were the first runs that he's given up as a Dodger. He was 3-0 with no runs given up and 6 hits in 19 innings before that. And a lot of those were the 7 innings on Saturday night from that perfect game. And so you got this pitcher. He's got this blister issue. I think I might have said splinter a minute ago. He got this blister issue, 7 innings, 89 pitches. Dave Roberts, who I think, and I don't think I'm being biased here, I think with all the injuries, the Dodgers have tied a major league record with putting 27 players on the disabled list this year. They've started 15 starting pitchers, which is more than anybody in the majors. And luckily they've got back Kershaw lately, and they're trying to bring him back. But Dave Roberts, 7th inning, you got this guy. It's a team game. You're looking towards the playoffs. What do? A lot of people are going to say, you got to leave this guy in and let him go for the perfect game. And other people are saying, it's a team game. You got to go for the combined no-hitter, which, of course, they didn't get. Joe Blanton gave up a hit in the 8th, and that was that.
Well, to me, and I might sound a little overly critical, I might sound like a cranky old man on this, but I just think our pitchers nowadays, compared to 20, 30 years ago, no one would have ever let themselves get pulled out if they were perfect after 7 innings. I mean, you think about the guys like the Burt Blylevens, Jack Morrises, and all those guys in the 80s, they're pitching 300 innings a year, and to me it seems like, it's not so much about this right here. I'm just thinking starting pitching in general now.
Yeah, it's a new era.
Yeah, I mean, it's about pitch counts. I always think of Steven Strasburg, who's, I think he's out now again. And, it's all about pitch counts. And to me, it's like our starting pitchers are just not like they used to be. I mean, when you'd have guys throw 300 innings, 250 strikeouts, and now, I get to 90 pitches. I'm throwing a, perfect game, and I'm going to let myself get pulled out. I don't see any, if you're thinking you're having like a Fernando Valenzuela back in the 80s, do you think he's getting pulled out by Tommy Lasorda? I mean, I just think, I understand why Roberts is doing it. That's how baseball is now. I think it's unfortunate. As someone who used to pitch, I like to finish my games. I don't want someone coming in and the bullpen to finish the game for me. I want to see it through until it's gone. If I lose it, then pull me out. But you got to give me a chance for history.
Right, and we're about to the point where we need to wrap up this episode, but I want to throw a few things in here. If the season ended today, we would have the New York Mets and the San Francisco Giants playing the wild card game. And the winner of that game would play the Cubs. And that New York Mets-Chicago Cubs series would be a rematch of the NLCS from last year. What a starting pitching matchup that would be again. And then we look at the AL East. Boston leads Baltimore by half a game. Toronto by 1 game. And so we've got 3 teams from the AL East right now that would make the playoffs. And Texas has the best record in the East. But we're running long on this segment. We'll have more baseball to talk about in the next coming weeks as the season starts to wind down.
We'll be right back for our closing segment here on Sports Talk is McKimmie.